I think as Vancouver Canucks fans, because I'm going to assume you're a Vancouver Canucks fan if you're watching this video, not a Blackhawks fan or any other team, but I feel like for a lot of us here on the West Coast, we may be starting to be spoiled. In fact, maybe it's even a really good amount of being spoiled, because I don't know about you, but the Vancouver Canucks beating the Chicago Blackhawks 2-0 in Rogers Arena. Thatcher Demko gets the 5th shutout of the season. He is now tied for first in the NHL. The Canucks are still on top of the NHL in total points and wins, overtaking the Bruins, who, with a regulation win over the Jets earlier tonight, leapfrogged themselves to number 1. The fact is, everything on paper, if you had told Canucks fans a year ago, they would have been in this position, they would have been like 8-1-1 in their last 10. Quinn Hughes gets the defenseman goal-scoring, leading, tying goal. I feel like all this stuff is great and all, but I don't know. I think we've just been getting a little bit too used to winning here in this city, that for some reason, I come out of this game and I say to myself, that's probably what should have happened. And to the Chicago Blackhawks' credit, when you see a game like this on paper, hey, the Blackhawks have such a terrible group of guys. They're all AHL call-ups, all their main players are injured. This is just a disaster season for Chicago, and they don't even have their consolation prize from last year's disaster season available to them in the lineup in Connor Bedard. This is not a good team. And so the Vancouver Canucks should probably go out there and put some work in, right? Well, wrong. They had chances and they had opportunities and they had zone time, but ultimately 2-0 is all they need to get the win. Thatcher Demko stood up tall. He had some very good saves. The Canucks, I felt, had a few kinks in the armor with their breakouts and how they would handle the puck in their own zone. The departure of Carlsson led to the introduction of Noah Juulsen back into the lineup, and he played all right. Of course, with Susie on the team, I think there's a lot more cohesion, and we've seen a lot more comfort out of the guys when they're skating and when they're making plays in their own zone, trying to break the puck out. It's been a really good ride here, but when Susie is out, Noah Juulsen has definitely improved enough to the point where I'm like, okay, just give him the go. He was bad at the beginning of the year, but man, he really improved as the season went on. But alas, the Canucks take this one 2-0, as we had said. 2 goals scored in the first half of the first period, and they both involve that same gosh darn second line. The second line that I called out in that Elliot Friedman video earlier yesterday, where I said, hey, the first line, the Lotto line, they've been fantastic. Besser, Miller, Petey, they can get goals, they can maintain possession, they could get offense. They're so smart and so talented, all of them working together. So that's been fantastic. The third line, the no-name line, has been a spectacular line too. Dakota Joshua, Teddy Bluger, Connor Garland, these guys are like, I don't want to say Lotto line light, but they kind of have a more defensive edge and snarl to them than the Miller, Besser, Petey line does. Plus, that Dakota Joshua, Garland, Bluger line, they just get results as much as the Lotto line does. It's kind of nuts. Meanwhile, you've got Höglander, Lafferty, and that Nils Åman together on the fourth line, and they've been playing some pretty good hockey too. Höglander has been kind of a cannon the past few weeks here. So it's all the lines contributing, but I said in the video yesterday, that second line, Kuzmenko, Michkov, Suter, they're kind of nothing. And they must have watched my video, because they took that assessment to heart and showed off in tonight's game against Chicago why sometimes they're the only line the Canucks need to win a hockey game. The first goal comes from Pius Suter, who has himself a beautiful one-timer in front. It's started out by Andrei Kuzmenko, who goes around the net and does a no-look spinorama backhand pass right through the slot to find Suter, who takes the one-time shot, and he makes it 1-0. This was literally 2 minutes into the hockey game. Kuzmenko played tonight like somebody who has been in the doghouse and who's trying to prove everybody wrong. He was spinning and wheeling and dealing and back-checking. This may have been one of the best games we have seen from Kuzmenko, and that's still despite the very obvious mistakes that he had in this game. In particular, in the third period when he was trying to get the puck out, there was one moment where he just did not do the right play. Instead of sending it back to an open area where there were two Canucks defenders there, he held onto it a little too long and got swallowed up by the Chicago forecheckers. That's like the one moment that really stood out to me as a negative in Kuzmenko's game. But other than that, I feel like this may have been one of the best nights he's had, and that no-look spinorama backhand pass definitely started things off well for him. The Canucks, though, after it was 1-0, kept applying pressure. Kuzmenko had great control around the net, and eventually it's Mikheyev who digs the puck out, gives it to Quinn Hughes, who has some room, and just drives down the left wing to the goal and snipes it short side. Quinn makes it 2-0 with 13:15 to go in the first period, and that is it. That's all the goals that you get out of this game, because Thatcher Demko and Petr Mrazek both had themselves some pretty good nights, all things considered. Demko especially. I feel like the Canucks in this game, they sort of took what was their strategy throughout the majority of the year and applied it to a T in this one, which is get themselves an early lead, really push their opposition to their limits in the first period and a half maybe, and then if they've got a considerable margin where they're up, just kind of lay back a little bit. Don't push yourself too hard, just let the play come to you, react and respond, and dump the puck out, get things going with the change, and you are underway. The Blackhawks, to their credit, fought back, and despite the enormous amount of penalties that were called in this game, too many men calls, tripping calls, cross-checking calls, neither the Canucks or the Blackhawks could get on the board afterwards, and there were a lot of conflicting calls too. Lots of 4-on-4 play in this one. At the end of the night, though, Vancouver goes 0 for 3 on their man advantages, and the Chicago Blackhawks go 0 for 5. Not really the best night for them in terms of power play, special teams, production, but still, I mean, they got shut out, so what else could you ask for from this Chicago team? Petr Mrazek made some really nice saves, and Thatcher Demko, especially in the ending parts of both the second and third period, really stood tall in his net. He made 31 saves on 31 total shots against. Meanwhile, Petr Mrazek had 27 saves on 29 shots, so he definitely had a fine night too. But I wanted to talk a little bit about just some of that third period action that we had seen from the Chicago Blackhawks, because there were some really nice plays. Colin Blackwell had a breakaway, trying to windmill the puck around Filip Hronek, but he shot the puck off the side of the net. There was also a power play towards the end. The Teddy Bluger trip on Radish probably gave the Blackhawks their best shift of the entire game. The Canucks killed off the power play, of course, but the Hawks had a crazy scramble in front, and Demko had to make multiple stops. 5 shots on that one power play opportunity for Chicago, but they weren't able to get it done. And speaking of that number 5, Demko, with his 5th shutout of the season, goes out there and ties. Who is the top of the NHL in shutouts right now? You've got Demko with Connor Ingram of the Coyotes and Tristan Jarry. So definitely not the names that you would expect to be there, but hey, Demko's right there. And they've got a 2 shutout lead over the big tie of Jeremy Swayman, Samuel Ersson, and Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen with 3 shutouts in the NHL. Unfortunately, when it comes to point production, you didn't see anything out of Petey or Miller, didn't see any goals for Besser. You got a goal out of Quinn Hughes, but 2 assists for Andrei Kuzmenko and the goal for Pius Suter as well. This was a really good showing for that line. They definitely had the best start, and as the game went on, you started to see more of that chemistry building itself up a little bit more in the offensive zone. Pius Suter honestly had multiple chances in front where he received the puck in a great one-timer position, but either missed the net or shot it into the goalie. I don't know, man. I like Pius Suter a lot at the beginning. As of lately, he's been getting a little snake-bitten, and I say that knowing that he scored the opening goal and the game-winning goal of tonight's action. So at the end of the day, the Canucks win 2-0. Really not the most special game in the world. This is a weird critique to say, but I feel like this would have been a slog of a game to watch live, just because, I don't know, the star power wasn't really too much on display. Bedard wasn't there. The Miller, Lotto, Pettersson line just did not get too much going. They looked good in certain moments. Their power play had some opportunities, but at the end of the day, all the action in terms of score sheet stuff came in the first period. So is this lackadaisical, kind of laid-back attitude really worth it? I don't know. I'm feeling kind of spoiled. Yeah, the Canucks won, but at this point, with all the wins that they've gotten over the past few weeks, A win like this feels kind of boring, not gonna lie. Do you agree with me? Let me know in the comments all your opinions about the Canucks winning against Chicago 2-0. I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.